Hello, this is Radhaa at Galactic Goddess Podcast, and this episode is all about ghosts. Do ghosts exist? And if so, what is their purpose? And I was inspired to create this podcast because I have encounters with ghosts, and I felt it was important to share this because today I was driving home from yoga and there was a young man that was walking on the side of the highway in the middle of the mountains. And I'm talking the middle of the mountains where there's, miles and miles and stretches before you get anywhere. And this is something that I see a lot. I know it's bizarre because it really is. Like on my road trip, I saw, I would always see people on the side of the road, or even people walking like in the midsection, like in the middle of the night. And I kept noticing these people, quote unquote, because they literally, it looks like, and usually they're all men, right? That's the other thing I noticed. They're usually all men, but they look 3D, like they don't look transparent. They look whole to me, as if they're, living people. But the difference is when I started to notice these, I guess, patterns about them, is that I would notice that often they would be looking down, okay? Now, if you're on a highway and you're walking on the side of the road and there's tons of cars coming, you're usually going to look at the cars, or you're going to be looking ahead. The other thing that I notice is that, like, I would be kind of fascinated, like what's this person doing, like walking by themselves on the side of the road. So I would usually slow down, and when I did, I was on the highway, I noticed another thing is that they turn their head away, and I was like, okay, this is bizarre, this is not normal. And so I just checked in with myself, with my higher self, and I really got that this was a deceased person who had been trapped in this plane, and his soul hadn't moved forward. This concept is not new to me because of the work I do. I have had many experiences where clients would come in and like a family member or somebody would want to talk to them, or they would want to talk to their family member. And I talked to some of my family members that have passed away, so it's not too bizarre to me. Although, with my family members that have passed away, they don't show up like that, and I really made crystal clear boundaries that, like, hey, I have no interest in seeing, ghosts in my house. I have no interest really in interacting with them at all. It's something that I can do because I am, very psychic and very intuitive, and I have the abilities, but I didn't choose to. I consciously chose not to see them, and I said, listen, you know what, I feel like I'm doing a lot of things here. I'm already helping out in a lot of ways. Like, seeing, deceased people is not really like my thing. There's a lot of psychics and healers and shamans that are into that. So, for the most part, I hadn't really, but it's come into my attention a few times where I felt like, let's see, like last time I was here in Asheville, I was driving down a small street, and it's a very quiet town, and I was driving down an alley, and there was a girl there, and she was wearing an old white nightgown, and it looked like it was ancient from another time. And I of course, I always do this. I started to drive slow because I'm kind of like fascinated, like, what's going on? Another thing I observed, because I was slowing down, she actually looked at me and I looked at her, and she had long, light hair, and she looked really young, maybe like 14 or 13, and she had bare feet. She had bare feet in the alley, and she had a dog. The one thing I really, really noticed, besides her really pale skin and her nightgown that was from another era, was her dog. She had it on a leash, but the dogs didn't move. Like, its face was just like on the ground. And I thought, that's bizarre. I was going to the bank, so I parked, and then I turned back to look, and she was gone. And so what immediately came to me is I just stopped in the parking lot, and what I gathered in that moment, I just tuned in for a minute, and I said, okay, what's going on? Like, what is she needing from me? Not that I just tune into ghosts and ask what they need, but obviously I could tell immediately that, she wasn't a physical 3D human. She was deceased, and I gathered that she had passed away, some time ago, but in certain cases, like, the soul does not go where it needs to go next. Sometimes it gets trapped in this physical realm, and that can be for a number of reasons. One is that if someone, passes away in a really traumatic way, the soul sometimes has a hard time to leave, because they get a little traumatized, and it's hard for the soul to leave. That's not the case every time, okay? It's a case by case basis. But at times the soul is like, they're not even aware that they passed away, or they're just traumatized. And so we live in a really unique reality where, it's possible our souls can sometimes get stuck in different places that they shouldn't be. And so it's really important, when someone passes away, that you really pray for them, that you really light candles, and you really, really, really pray for them, and ask, the Creator and the divine universe to please make sure that this person has a clear passageway, and really affirm for that, so that they can go to the other side. In this case, this girl had gotten stuck in this dimension. It had been a very long time for her, although, understand that time is all relative. In this particular reality, time is constructed. In other realities, it's timeless. So we can overlap realities sometimes, where there is like a loop in time for them, but then for us, we're moving forward. I hope that makes sense. So for her, she just got trapped in a loop. It could, and it's also sometimes people get it if they feel too attached to something, they have a hard time leaving. And it's really, 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 really important to really pray for people that pass on, and to really help assist their soul travel, to the next place, and to travel safely, and to make sure that their path is clear. It's very, very important not to just mourn for people, but to truly pray for them. So I just took that time in my car, and I just said, okay, this young lady needs help. She's asked me, because that's why she showed herself to me. She asked me for help, and I know that she asked me for help. So that's why she looked at me, and I was happy to assist, and I did. And then I just got this feeling like this lightness that came over me. Like I felt like, okay, she's moved forward. So I checked and she did. And then after that, I said, you know what, universe, I'm not really keen on like being the person that's gonna assist people from moving from this dimension to the next. Like that's not really the job. I really would rather work with people that are alive. In my personal channelings, like I said, I do work with my lineage, and I work with the goddesses, but you know, for the most part, I'd rather just work with people that are here in this reality. So I hadn't seen any ghosts for a while, but then I did notice that something shifted. Like when I left LA and came to North Carolina, something shifted again for me. I don't know what it is about this place in the Appalachian Mountains, but it just sort of like burst open my part of my expansion, my higher consciousness. Something opens up here where I'm much more perceptive, and my abilities even improve here. So the first thing that happened when I got here, it was like really, really, really late at night. Drove up the mountain and parked the car, and I got out, brought in a bag, and went back to get another bag, and there was a man who was lying on a log and scared the crap out of me. Literally, he had his hands behind his head, like kicked back. His legs were like crossed over, like he was chilling on the log, and it was kind of on the mountain, so he was kind of like leaned up a little bit, so you know, and he was like smiling like he knew me. And it freaked me out so bad. I mean, it's one thing just to like see a ghost when you're driving. It's another when you're like when there's one like right in front of you. It just took me by surprise because it's usually not my thing. I particularly put out a request not to have like those encounters. And so I kind of made a little squeal like, ah! And then he disappeared. He didn't mean to scare me. And actually he was welcoming me back to the mountain because nobody had been here for so long, I think like 8 months, that he was like protecting the property. He was protecting the property and safeguarding it. And sometimes, you know, a ghost will know you from another past life, because I have had a past life here in this area in the Appalachian Mountains where I was actually like a socialite. It's interesting because my mother had a past life here and she was a Native American, and I was like a socialite here before. So we both have like really different contrasting experiences being here. And so yeah, he was a blast from my past. And sometimes certain souls choose not to like move to the next level or whatever, simply because they actually enjoy being here. It's like they're in this like timelessness space, and some of them really like it. They have fun. When I was in Italy, oh yes, this is another time. When I was in Italy, I was in Florence, staying at this very cool hotel right downtown Florence. But let me tell you, you know, all of the hotels down there are really old and ancient, and I have this connection with Italy, like really deep connection with Italy. I've been there a few times, and I've been there many times in my past life. I just love it. And I was incarnated during the time of like the Roman Empire. And so when I went there the first time, it was like deja vu. When I was in Rome, whoa. I got flashbacks. It was so intense, but it was intense in like a incredible way that I felt, I almost felt like access, like a part of me that was dormant, just like awoke in that moment. I went to like where the Roman Empire is, and I walked on the grounds, and I was like, I've been here, and I saw visions, and it was just like these flashes that were profound and powerful, and I just connected with the people and the food, and I got energized being on that land. It was a vortex, a power vortex for me. And so I was in Florence, and I also felt like very much familiar with this place. Oh gosh, I'm trying to remember his name. Okay, I'll tell you his name. Give me a second. I'll tell you what happened. So I was sitting on my bed, and I went with my mom, and we were, in the same suite, and I was sitting on the bed, and I was sitting up, and I felt like there was like hands on my leg. Okay, super creepy. I was like, excuse me. And usually when I feel like something weird, I basically just banish the being, like, you need to leave, and I command it to leave, and it usually just goes away. Well, this one was a little persistent. So then they did leave like me, but they went to the bathroom and tossed like something out of the bathroom. And I was like, excuse me. This was very persistent energy, but I didn't feel like it was malicious. So I said, okay. All right. You know what? I'm not getting like a dark energy from you or a bad vibe. And I don't just like volunteer to connect with random beings. Like I don't. And I wasn't seeing them in like a 3D or physical form. This particular experience, I could just feel the energy, and I felt like it was this masculine male. So then I was like, what is your name? And then I said, okay, what is your name? What does your name start with? What is the first letter of your name? And so I went through the alphabet, and this is unusual. I don't usually do that either. Like usually there's a name that comes to me. This one was being a little bit more, I guess, mysterious or a little difficult, but nonetheless, I felt this like need to figure it out. So I went ahead and I went all the way down to P. So their name started with a P, and then I said, are you a female? Are you male energy? I got very strongly it was a male energy. And somehow through this whole thing, I got Pompeii. I was like, Pompeii? That's a weird name, Pompeii. And then he tells me, I'm Pompey the Great. And I was like, oh. I was like, it sounds pretty royal, or, I was like, okay, well, hold on, let me like Google you. So I went ahead and I opened up my computer and I Googled Pompey the Great and realized that this was like a Roman, I guess he was like a general. He was during the time of Caesar, and he was a friend of mine at that time. So, Pompey the Great, what are you doing here? And he was like so excited to see me, and he I was like, gosh, that's been a long time. You've just been hanging out. Like, you know, I've incarnated quite a few times since then, you know. But he was really happy. Like, that this is an example of where basically he chose not to incarnate or to move to go to the other side. Like, he didn't want to leave Italy. He loves Italy. He identifies with being like Italian, and also he identifies with his identity as Pompey the Great. So I was like, well, what do you do with your time? Like, seriously, that's a lot of free time on your hands. And he was telling me that he basically he'll go to like bars, and like he enjoys so sometimes what a ghost, I guess, you know, can do is that they can drink with you because it's called spirits, because when you drink, then they can also get the experience. They can almost like well, I'm trying to think of how I can describe what they would do. They almost kind of like overlap you. They can even, you know, depending on who they are and what they're about, you know, that's why some people get like really violent when they get drunk, because sometimes a quote unquote spirit takes over. Sometimes it's just a spirit that wants to drink and like enjoy, as like an alcoholic spirit. So Pompey the Great was definitely a drinker, and he enjoyed going to the pub and having drinks with people, and he just loved the feeling of like laughter, and he was a very joyous, you know, spirit, and he was happy. He didn't seem like upset or anything like that. He was really, really, really incredible spirit. Like, I really liked him. We connected, and I was like, oh my gosh. And he was telling me about, you know, the people that we know, and a lot of times like soul families or soul groups will incarnate together, you know. So he knew some of the people that I knew, and he was saying like he had regretted certain things he did in his past, in that time that he was Pompey the Great, because he wasn't like, he was a little bit of a Roman warrior, and he was, I mean, he did some nasty things that he regretted. You know, it was a very primal time where it was about who was the strongest, who was the fittest, who was the most powerful, who was the most dominant. It was all about conquering and surviving, and that was the energy of the time. You know, times shift and change, and we hopefully evolve, but in that time it was like, who can dominate, who can outsmart the other person, and they would do things like poison each other. But he was very power driven, you know, being at that time. Much more chill as a spirit, but nonetheless, it was such an incredible experience to connect with him, and we sort of caught up, and he had messages that he wanted me to give to people, and I was like, I don't know how they're gonna take it, but okay, I'll tell them. And he was so friendly that, like, even when I left, he literally walked me down to the train station. That's how sweet he was. What a gentleman. But I said, hey, can I help you? Like, do you want to go? Do you want to, like, go? You know, do you want to move on? And he was like, no, I'm not ready. I'm still happy to be here. I was like, oh, wow, okay. You know, I respect your choice. So sometimes like ghosts or spirits, they are not ready to move on, and they don't want to, and they're still very attached to their country or their location or whatever it is, that life that they had. There's many reasons why they don't want to move on, and so part of that is also respecting those that choose not to, because in the end, like, we're all evolving, we're all moving forward, and we're all experiencing different things that we need to experience. And I think it's really important to respect a being, whether it's incarnated into a physical body or not. So I said goodbye, and it was like really bittersweet to say goodbye to Pompey the Great. And I've never heard of him before, had really no idea who he was, and I did have all those past life memories being there before, and the great Roman Empire, and so it was just a beautiful experience to have with him. But fast forwarding to what happened today. So, like I said, when I was driving, I saw that really, I would call him like a sweet boy. Like, he was young, maybe like, gosh, I mean, it's hard to really say, but definitely in his 20s. Some of the beings that I've seen here, it was a couple weeks ago, I think, or a week ago, that I saw one, and he was also on the side of the road walking, and he was wearing like khaki shorts that were below his knee, I think, and then he was wearing this like button-up shirt that was like definitely 1960s, okay? And he was really heavy set, and he was walking on the side of the road, and I just knew, like, and of course he was looking down too, and I knew, like, you don't belong here, like, what are you doing? So, I kept getting that these beings were like showing themselves to me, and the reason why is definitely not because I asked, because I asked not to, but because they needed a sacred witness that would help them get to that next level, and this could happen to anyone, really. It's about, I think it's because, like, I'm attuned to my environment, and, I know if something doesn't seem like it belongs there, or, I can just feel it. So I've noticed this pattern. So today I was like, okay, last week I also prayed for that being to move to the next level. And then this time I was really moved. I felt like my heart was like, oh man, he looks like he's really sad. His head was down, and he was just looking down at the ground and walking. And I was like, wow, on the side of a highway. So I just in my car, I was just like, listen, I just called, the universe, and basically I just prayed and prayed for him. I was like, you gotta help him out. Like, and I was helping to imagine him going back to the divine creator and really getting back to where he needs to be. He needed help. He was stuck. I could feel he was stuck. And I felt like he needed that help. He showed himself to me so that I could ask for him. And I did. And guess what? Within a couple minutes after I completed my prayer, and I was just really, really, really determined, thinking that he was going to get the help he needed, to move forward. I couldn't believe it. Like, there was this huge cloud formation that was fluffy, and all of a sudden it turned into his face. Okay, I have a picture of it, so I'm gonna post that. But I said, give me a confirmation that he made it. I just want to know that he's okay. I almost wanted to turn back around and like look for him and make sure he was like, because there was nowhere he could go. It was just this long road in the middle of the mountains, and aka the middle of nowhere. But the universe, and he showed me his face and was like, I made it. And I could tell he was like, thank you. His soul still had some sorting out to do, and obviously he had a deep sadness from not having been carried home. And of course, sometimes there's a feeling of deep abandonment there. So, we have to be compassionate for all beings and love all beings. And, it's not something that I really want to do, is like see souls and like carry or help them get to the next place. But if that's what it takes, I'm happy to assist. And I think it really comes down to compassion, because it's not just about me or what I can do. I think all of us can help each other, and that's how it should be. Like if you see a being that feels like they're really out of place, and you're like, why are you walking on the highway in the middle of the night and there's no exit or anywhere? It doesn't take much. You have to make an intention, or you don't have to do anything, but make an intention for that person. Say, hey, I'm just gonna do a little prayer for you. And even if if you don't, it doesn't matter what religion you are, it really matters about the intention and really wanting the best for that being. Because everyone gets in a hard place sometimes, and you never know what the circumstances in anyone's life could be, or even in their afterlife. So some people don't have family or loved ones, or people to really pray for them or send them those positive intentions. Maybe they got stuck. So it's really a beautiful thing, and it's a service to have good intentions for others, whether they're living or passed on, because at the end of the day, we're all passing through here. We should always try to help each other out in any way we can. It doesn't take too much. It didn't take too much to ask for this young man to please, move forward. And guess what? He totally did. And I was so happy, and I just got this feeling of joy that came over me, because I was like, yes. I was like, you know what? Go have a blast. Enjoy yourself. You don't have to worry about pain or anything like that. Like, you made it. You did it. That's a huge, awesome thing. You crossed over, and you're in this like zone that is a beautiful place to be. So enjoy it. And I was like, enjoy yourself, have fun. And I was celebrating for him, because death doesn't always have to be like, there's something beautiful too about transitioning. There's something beautiful about the soul going into the next phase of its reality. And it's just a beautiful thing. Celebrate for these beings, And so I was celebrating with him, and I could feel it. And I was just so happy. I felt like this great wave of joy. Whenever you do something meaningful or good for someone else, it gives you that feeling, those endorphins, and you just get this universal warm and fuzzy feeling. So, talking about like, do ghosts exist? Well, yeah, they absolutely do. They can be trapped in a loop, in an energetic loop, a time loop, for a number of reasons, as I said before. Sometimes they don't want to go, and sometimes it's against their will that they got stuck. So, I would say never be afraid of a ghost, because at the end of the day, they can't do anything to you. They can't do anything to you except scare you. They don't have that power. They don't have that physical body. And really, if they show up, it's more about, they probably need to be sent to the light, So, it's always good to have some sage, and it's always good to make an intention. But like, again, I say, like, wherever I live, like, no, I don't let ghosts in my house, because that's not cool. I don't do that. I'm not here to just have a bunch of ghosts in my space. But if I'm driving or something and I see one, it's like community service, On the other hand, like my mom, like she'll wake up in the middle of the night and there'll be like a couple of ghosts there being like, could you please help us get to the next level? And she'll be like, whoa, okie dokie, you know? So yeah, it's just about having compassion. You know, we're all in different stages in our lives and even our afterlife, and it's definitely not about judgment in any way, shape, or form. We're all learning, and we're all in this, you know, together as a collective, no matter what. So that is my little ghost story, and I would just say, like, never really fear, because there's really nothing that can hurt you. You have to make the intention always, you know, first of all, knowing who you are on the inside, knowing that you're safe, knowing that you're supported, and also, you know, making affirmations and mantras and prayers are so important. At least in my life, they are. Prayers have helped me very much, and I really believe in prayers. I think anytime that you're affirming for something good for yourself, for another, you just can't go wrong, you know. I believe that there is like that divine assistance, and it's important to call upon that and to connect with that. And I've seen so many miracles happen, so for me, it just feels like second nature. But anyhow, I hope you enjoyed my story. I just wanted to share with you. If you have any ghost stories that you want to share or anything, reach out to me. And my website is goddesscodeacademy.com, and shoot me an email. I'd love to hear from you and hear your story. So I hope you enjoyed that, and I'll talk to you later. Much love, Radha.